After 60, older women start hating their husbands, and most men never see it coming. Let's not sugarcoat it. Some older women begin to resent, even hate, their husbands after 70. Not suddenly, not loudly, but slowly, over years of being dismissed, ignored, or emotionally abandoned by the very man who once vowed to love them. It's not a dramatic explosion. It's a quiet, growing coldness, and by the time most men notice, it's often too late to fix. Hi, it's Vernon again, and today we're going to talk plainly about something most people tiptoe around. Why older women start hating their husbands after 70, and what most men still don't understand. If this kind of truth resonates with you, subscribe to my channel for everyday wisdom and quiet reminders that love, even late in life, still deserves to be seen, heard, and held onto. Let me tell you a story, and from that story, we'll begin to uncover the quiet truths that most couples never speak aloud.
1. She feels invisible long before she walks away. One of the most overlooked truths in long-term relationships is this: emotional presence is more important than physical presence. A man can sit across from his wife at the dinner table every evening, sleep beside her every night, and still be completely absent from her inner world. This absence doesn't shout, it hums beneath the surface, in the lack of curiosity, in the hurried nods, in the absence of listening. Over time, it erodes not just connection, but identity. When a woman no longer feels seen, she starts to question if she still matters, not just to her husband, but to the story they've written together. A 2021 study from the University of Michigan found that emotional responsiveness, not the frequency of interaction, was the strongest predictor of relationship satisfaction in aging couples. In other words, it's not how often you're there, it's how deeply you care when you are. And when that presence fades, resentment grows like mold in the quiet corners of a home once filled with conversation. Emotional neglect rarely begins with malice. It begins with distraction, with routine, with the slow belief that what was once tended with care will somehow survive without it. The truth is, neglect is a silence, not always cruel, but always cumulative. And silence, over time, begins to feel like abandonment. A woman doesn't always need words, but she does need witness. And when that witness disappears, day after day, she begins to vanish in her own home. Not because she's gone, but because no one is looking. The wound of emotional neglect is invisible at first, but like rust, it spreads beneath the surface until what once held the weight of love begins to fall apart without warning. Now let's look at something that often grows quietly alongside emotional absence: the burden of unspoken expectations. 2. She carries the weight of unspoken expectations. No one tells you that marriage in your later years becomes less about grand gestures and more about silent assumptions. Who will remember the doctor's appointment? Who will cook, clean, reach out to the grandkids? In many homes, especially ours, it was my wife who kept the wheels turning, often without ever being asked and rarely being thanked. I remember one winter she caught the flu, the real aching kind that stays in the bones. I assumed she'd be fine in a few days. She still managed to get up, make tea, pay the bills, and even remind me of my prescription. I never stopped to ask, "Do you need help?" I didn't realize then that what she needed wasn't my help, but my awareness, my presence, my care without being prompted. You see, resentment doesn't always grow from big betrayals. Sometimes it grows from quiet imbalance, where one partner keeps giving and the other keeps assuming. Unspoken expectations become silent debts, and when those debts go unpaid for years, love begins to feel transactional. Research from the American Psychological Association in 2020 noted that perceived inequality in emotional or domestic labor, especially in older couples, was one of the strongest indicators of long-term dissatisfaction. It's not about who does more, it's about who feels alone in the doing. She doesn't hate you because of the tasks. She begins to hate how invisible her effort has become. But here's the truth I learned, and not quickly, mind you. The first time I truly thanked her, not for one thing, but for everything she carried quietly, she cried. Not out of sadness, but out of recognition, out of relief. Sometimes all it takes to ease the weight is a simple gesture of presence, a sincere thank you, a hand reaching for hers without agenda. The way back isn't dramatic. It's not some grand romantic comeback. It's small, repeated, consistent, and it begins with noticing. Because the moment you see her again, truly see her, you give her a reason to stay present in the relationship, not just in the routines. And that kind of loneliness, the kind that comes while sharing a life with someone, is far heavier than being alone. Next, let's explore a quieter kind of disconnection, the erosion of shared purpose.
Number 3, she no longer recognizes the life they built together. If you're over 60, you know this. Life has a way of changing without asking for permission. Dreams that once brought two people together can dissolve quietly, not in tragedy, but in the quiet fog of routine. In our younger years, we chase goals side by side. But if we're not careful, we end up merely sharing space, not direction. For older women, this shift is not always loud. It shows up in questions they no longer ask, in conversations they stop initiating, because somewhere along the road, they stopped recognizing the life they were supposed to be building. It became someone else's version, not their own. You see, shared purpose isn't just for the young. It is what keeps love from becoming stale. A woman needs to feel that her life is still unfolding, that her voice still shapes the direction of her shared future, not just the dinner menu or the next medical appointment. When that sense of shared authorship fades, so too does intimacy. What remains is cohabitation, not companionship. And that's when bitterness can begin to set in. Not because she stopped loving him, but because she no longer sees herself in the life they're living. The real tragedy? Many men don't even notice the map has changed. So ask yourself, are we still dreaming new dreams together, or merely maintaining a life already written in past tense? And if any part of this stirred something in you, a memory, a regret, or even just a quiet recognition, I'd love to hear it. Share your thoughts in the comments below. You never know who might be quietly reading, needing to hear that they're not alone. Next, we'll explore how the conflicts we bury, the things we think time will soften, often become the very fractures that love can't mend.
Number 4. She remembers every conflict you chose to forget. Time doesn't heal all wounds, especially the ones we pretend don't exist. Many couples believe that if they stay silent long enough, the pain will pass. But silence is not resolution. It's just storage. And what's stored in the heart doesn't disappear. It hardens. In my own marriage, I once thought I was doing the noble thing by not starting a fight. I thought walking away from an argument was strength. But what I didn't realize is that walking away also meant leaving her alone in her hurt. I wasn't avoiding conflict, I was avoiding her pain. And over time, that became its own form of cruelty. Unspoken resentments don't vanish. They calcify. They show up years later in tone, in withdrawal, in moments where love should exist but doesn't. According to a 2022 study published in the Journals of Gerontology, older adults who avoided addressing long-standing relationship grievances reported significantly lower levels of marital satisfaction and emotional closeness, especially women. And here's the part many men miss. She may have stayed quiet, but she didn't forget. Not the dismissive tone, not the broken promise, not the apology that never came. When these moments go unacknowledged, they pile up like unopened letters, each one a small betrayal waiting to be read. The lesson? Conflict isn't the enemy, avoidance is. The more we fear the discomfort of truth, the further we drift from the very person we claim to love. But the good news? It's never too late to open the drawer, to go back and say, I remember, I was wrong, I'm listening now. Because acknowledgement, not perfection, is what turns resentment back into connection. Number 5. She notices when touch becomes a stranger. There is a language older than words, and in marriage it's spoken through hands, through glances, through the quiet brush of skin against skin. As we age, many assume that intimacy naturally fades, that passion makes way for practicality, that physical closeness is a luxury we outgrow. But the truth? Touch is never trivial. Its presence made visible. When the hand no longer reaches out, not because of pain, but because the effort has gone missing, something far deeper begins to shift. She may still sit beside him, sleep in the same bed, even laugh at the same old jokes. But inwardly, she's drifting, not from the man, but from the meaning. Touch, once instinctive, now feels negotiated. And the absence of it, it's not neutral. It speaks. It says, I've stopped reaching for you because I've stopped remembering why. That's the ache. The philosopher Simone Weil once wrote, attention is the rarest and purest form of generosity, and touch, real, intentional touch, is its physical expression.
When that attention vanishes, so does the sense of being cherished. Because it's not the lack of sex or passion that stings the most. It's the absence of acknowledgement, of being held as if you still matter, of being reminded without words that you are still worth the reach. She doesn't need grand passion. She needs warmth. A forehead kiss before bed. A palm on her back as she passes by. Not out of obligation, but recognition. To be touched with intention is to be told, I still choose you. And when that language is lost, love becomes harder to translate. Silence grows, bodies retreat. If we wish to keep love alive, we must keep the skin in the story, because while words can lie or falter, the body remembers truth. In the final part, we'll step into the quiet ache that few dare to name, the moment when staying in love starts to cost more than leaving ever could. Let's explore what it means when love becomes one-sided and staying begins to feel like a slow erosion of the self, rather than a safe return to it.
Number 6. She stays but loses pieces of herself. Have you ever stayed so long in something that once felt like home, only to realize it slowly became a place where you had to shrink to fit? There is a loneliness sharper than silence, the one that grows inside familiarity. It comes not from being left behind, but from remaining where you're no longer fully seen. She stays, yes, but each day she trades a little more of her truth for the sake of not being alone. This kind of erosion doesn't show itself in dramatic moments. It happens in small silences, in lowered voices, in needs left unspoken because they've been unmet too many times. And one day, without knowing when it started, she finds herself living a life she no longer recognizes, not because it changed suddenly, but because she disappeared slowly within it. As we age, we're told that love becomes companionship, that passion is replaced by peace. But peace without presence, without mutual recognition, isn't peace at all. It's resignation dressed as stability. It's knowing that the person beside you may still love the idea of who you were, but no longer sees the person you are becoming. In a one-sided love, she begins to edit herself, softening her voice, shelving her needs, dimming her joy. Not out of fear, but from fatigue. Because asking again, explaining again, hoping again, costs more than silence. Philosopher Søren Kierkegaard once said, "The most painful state of being is remembering the future you'll never have." And for many women, staying in a relationship that no longer sees them feels exactly like that, like mourning the life they once imagined together. But within that ache lies a truth. Love must include renewal, not just survival, but mutual transformation. Because to love someone in their later years is not to preserve who they were, it's to grow with who they are still becoming.
And when that doesn't happen, when love no longer feels like home, she doesn't leave with a bang. She disappears in place until even she no longer recognizes the woman reflected back in the quiet. Have you ever nodded, smiled, kept moving through the motions, while silently grieving the version of yourself that once laughed louder, asked for more, or felt truly held? Reply to me in the comments. I love hearing your reflections. They remind us all that we're never truly alone in what we feel. This isn't just about love. It's about the cost of staying when you've stopped being seen. That question isn't meant to wound, it's meant to awaken. Because the final season of life deserves more than quiet suffering. It deserves clarity. It deserves you.
When we talk about love after 60, we're not talking about flowers or anniversaries. We're talking about whether you still see each other, not with your eyes, but with your attention. We're talking about whether two lives, once shared so fully, are still being written together, or merely archived under the same roof. Everything we've explored here, the silence, the routine, the fading touch, the unresolved hurt, points to one truth. Love doesn't die in loud moments. It dies in neglect, in forgetfulness, in the soft habit of no longer choosing. And yet, what makes us human is not perfection, but our willingness to begin again, to choose each other again, even now. As Carl Jung once said, the meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed. Love, real love, must be allowed to transform, to breathe, to break sometimes, and be rebuilt together. So if you're still here, listening, feeling, this is your invitation, not just to reflect, but to reconnect, to ask, to notice, to reach. Because sometimes the smallest gesture can undo years of quiet unraveling. If this resonated with you, please like the video, share it with someone who may need it. Leave a comment, not just for me, but for someone else who might read your words and feel a little less alone. And if you want more of this kind of quiet truth, don't hesitate to subscribe to my channel for weekly wisdom, heartfelt stories, and honest reflections on love, aging, and connection. We're building something gentle here, and I'd be honored to have you walk with us. Until next time, this is Vernon, reminding you, it's never too late to love better. Even now, especially now. And I'm Vernon. Thanks for watching my video.